So we talk a lot about field prep early in the season, as clearly we're getting fields ready to plant, and we're actually at the stage where we are going to be ready to plant in the next 5 days at our goal, as long as the weather's in our favor. And one thing I want to talk about is kind of the second stage, the second tools, second machines we use to really get the job done to get into the field. So one, we talked about subsoiling. Two is plowing or tillage or flipping of the soil. And there's a couple of cool things, different ways to go about this, to work around it, to get the job done is what I'm getting at. And I'll talk about what we use. I'm going to talk about what we'd like to be using, especially in the future as we want to transition to more and more no-till. Talk about feasible options other than what we use and other things that are available depending on what you're planting. So I'll start with what we plant. So we're diversified vegetables, so we're doing anything from sweet corn down to radishes to summer squash to transplanted crops, peppers, tomatoes, eggplants, you name it. We're growing lots of different things. And so that requires lots of different types of seeds, lots of different types of transplants, lots of different types of cultural practices to get the job done. So in our current system, we use a moldboard plow. And what is that thing? So right here I'm sitting next to our 3-bottom moldboard plow. And what's a moldboard plow? So it's essentially, these are your plows. Essentially it's an implement that helps dig and flip the soil. And we'll show you in a couple of videos of what this actually looks like in motion. But you have a couple different parts to these machines. There's different bottoms. These are called your bottoms. So like this one has 1, 2, 3. This one has a capability of doing 4. The more horsepower, bigger tractor you have, you can pull up to 5, 6, 7, you name it. The other cool thing is the size of your bottoms, which is pretty interesting. So the bigger your bottom, the more cutting width you have. And this was always kind of hard for me to understand to start. And then, as I learned and got more educated, understanding what was going on. So what that means is from your distance from this point all the way over here to the edge of your other bottom is there's a distance between, and that's your cutting width, cutting distance. So these are 16-inch moldboard plow, meaning that each bottom can cut 16 inches across. So giving me 3 bottoms, I can cut about, I think it's about 4 feet or so, maybe a little under. If you add that 4th bottom in, you're going to get another 16 inches. Now, like I said, with equipment, larger equipment for bigger tractors, they make different bottoms that are maybe 20 to 24 to even maybe bigger cutting widths. And that's just the size of your cutter. So this is your moldboard. This is where the soil flips over. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not great with this terminology. But this down here basically is your cutter. So this jives into the soil, creates that cutting platform for the soil to then come and flip over your plow. You have coulters here in the back that help cut up any residue where your point right here is going to dig in. That way you're not binding up or getting caught on stuff and then screwing up your plow. So these are very intricate systems, and I can get, if people are interested, I can get into really how you set up and go about plowing. But one really cool thing I want to talk about, and what you'll see in the video a little bit, is that you are plowing and making a dead furrow. And so what you're essentially doing when you're plowing is that you're cutting and you're flipping the soil, but you're cutting down anywhere from 8 to 12 inches and taking that soil and flipping it on top. So what that creates is basically a trench about 8 to 12 inches deep. And that's where your tractor tire rides in. If you have, these are 3-point hitch mounted or semi-mounted hitch plows, that's probably how you're going to plow. They have really cool plows called on-land plows that kind of change the shape in the implement itself instead of working with the tractor specifically to do that. So essentially what happens, and I'll move the camera a little bit, but imagine your tractor. Here, we'll move the camera a little bit. So it might be a little hard to see, but the implement right here, it's kind of on an angle. If you look kind of where the tractor is sitting and you look at the implement's a little skewed up. And the reason for this is because this side, usually you're sitting on the tractor, the passenger side of the tractor or the right side of the tractor is going to be sitting down in that furrow as you plow. And what the main goal here is to have a pretty nice consistent turnover of the soil as you do every pass. So the main goal of this is to adjust for a tractor that's sitting on an angle, and so your plows are sitting level with the ground. So when you're plowing, it's not on an angle and your soil is not being thrown some weird funky way. So this requires a little of adjustment, and if people are interested in how to actually set up a 3-point hitch moldboard plow, I can definitely go into that, but it's a little more in depth than maybe the average consumer would want to hear about. That's really cool. That's something really cool that I've learned over the years of how to adjust these plows to plow perfectively and proficiently in the soil. So we're working to, get that most even level playing field while your tractor is pretty much at an angle in the ground, or 6 to 12 inches down on one side than the other, and adjusting these plows to sit level on top of the ground. So that's one really cool thing about plowing. Let's get into some different ways of tilling the soil. So this is one way, like I said, plowing with a moldboard plow. Let's get into some different implements that you can do that. And unfortunately, I don't have the implement here because this is what we use, but there are a couple different things that you are capable of using to kind of get the same job done. So let's go check those out. So let's now talk about some other implements that you can do to field prep or till your soil. And I forgot, I do have one other implement around that we do use pretty regularly to really, something you could use to really start with field prep of your field. But a couple others I want to talk about are chisel plows, zone tillers, different implements like that that have cutting teeth or shanks that help break up and kind of throw and toss the soil. Big thing with conventional tillage, which in another video I'm going to talk about actual conventional versus no-till or limited tillage. But with conventional tillage, the main goal is to get fresh soil turned over, prepped, ready for a new planting season or a new planting of whatever you're doing. Here at Bardwell Farm, we still do a lot of conventional tillage, but we are slowly transitioning over to no-till, and that's a whole new ball game. I'll get into that with a different video. But zone tillers or chisel plows, those are really good for things that you're either trying to direct seed that aren't as finicky. So say things like field corn or sweet corn, it's really easy to go through and just chisel plow, which are just shanks like this that pull through the soil. They throw it and fluff it, brings up new topsoil to plant into. And so that's pretty easy to go through and just plant some field corn through, where you're not really dealing with a small seed that needs a nice soil to plant into. So that's one thing. Some other implements that we use around here are wheel harrows. Wheel harrows, perfecta, are another good way of field prepping fields. And I'll just turn the camera around right now where you guys can see that, which is a different way to till the soil. We don't really use this when we're starting our tillage for the season. We usually mainstream to our moldboard plow because that gives us a nice clean finish, like you can see in the field. Takes all the debris, cover cropping, whatever, and flips it over and starts decaying and gives us a nice fresh soil bed to start with little to no debris. That's if your plows are set up correctly. So right here, I want to show you a set of wheel harrows. This is a light duty 8-foot set of harrows. We use this to start a lot of our field prep right before planting. This is a great tool. This is almost like a moldboard plow in a way, if you really look at it. If you take these discs, see how they're kind of concaved at an angle. So what this does when it goes and spins in the soil, we need some grease on here, but what this does as it spins and pulls through the soil is it takes it and it throws the soil. So you have little plows here almost that are taking the soil and flipping it over. This is only cutting at maybe a 3 to 5 inch depth at maximum, and limitedly throwing the soil over. Instead of throwing it 16 inches, it might be throwing it like just 2 or 3. But this is a great implement to, prep your soil, get it chewed up a little bit to have a nice firm seed bed. These are hydraulic, so they work off a hydraulic piston. This attaches to the tractor. You have a piston that goes up and down. You can have some implements that are 3-point hitch. You can have some implements that have up and down pressure. This is just a up pressure to raise and lower the implement. Works off gravity once it's pressed down all the way, and the weight of the machine helps dig into the soil. Hey guys, right now I'm sitting in a dead furrow that I made from our Moldboard plows. And I really wanted to give a cool representation on what a dead furrow really is and what that means. So I'm in a dead furrow. Right here is about an 8-inch cutting depth that the Moldboard plows cut down into, and took the soil that was here and it flipped it to here. So the soil that was down here was then turned and flipped here, giving us that nice top fresh soil. Now if I dug down a good couple inches here, you'd be able to find, kind of hard to see, but you'll be able to find like the cover crop and debris that was on top here before. But this is how we get a nice fresh seed bed at the beginning of our planting time. So I want to talk about when we're actually plowing. After you've made your first couple passes and done your adjustment, this is where our tractor tire is going to be riding in. So if you imagine your tractor tire, let me back up a little bit. Right to the left of me is the actual top of the unplowed surface of the soil. So if you can see right here to right here, really the distance and depth between is pretty drastic. So imagine a tractor tire that's going to be sitting right here on the edge of a furrow versus your other tractor tire on the other side of your tractor is going to be up here. So your tractor's really sitting at quite an angle in here. And what I was talking about previously is that your implement or your Moldboard plow wants to be sitting level with the ground, the regular surface ground. So what we have to do here is we adjust, with the tractor sitting like this, we adjust the plows to be sitting level as they go through the soil. And that's going to give us, if you look behind me, a nice even plowed surface. And yeah, you see a lot of kind of bumps and ripples here. That's just what the plow does as it flips the soil. You can add implements onto the back of your Moldboard plows like rakes or clog busters to kind of break up the soil and level it out some more. We usually come through after we fertilized or top dressed, broadcasted before we plant with a Perfecta or the harrows I was talking about, to level us out and make a nice seed bed. So this is one of the first steps that we do in getting our fields prepped for the season. I will talk on one negative note that plowing the soil is really degenerative to our soil. Constantly tilling and digging and flipping of the soil really is adding a lot of carbon into the atmosphere. It's really disturbing the life that is growing our crops, that is sustaining our food. And unfortunately, with the new age of agriculture, this is something that's been well adapted. And I think because it's easy for us to be able to flip the soil and plant into something like this versus planting into something to the left of me that hasn't been disturbed, that has material in it, debris, other organisms and other plant life growing to then grow the crops that we're trying to feed people. So this is when I talk about no-till, is why no-till is so important to me, and why the life and habitat of my soil is also so important to me. I love plowing. It's actually one of my most fun pastimes of my job. At the same time, it's very destructive to the fields, the land, and the crops that I'm growing. So it's a battle between good and bad, and what's really better, what's economical. So that's why we're really trying to invest in more no-till or limited till equipment, because what we're doing year after year is really degrading the soil we have, really not helping the environment. You know, we're kind of contributing to climate change, and even this small farm with 25 acres might be a drop in the bucket. We're still we're giving to that. The other farms, the thousands and thousand acres around us that are tilling as well, we're all contributors, unfortunately. So we're really trying to get away from this kind of practice, but it's very, very expensive because it's really changing and adapting your whole tillage practice, all your implements, and the way of farming, really. So that's one note I wanted to give, is that this is an easy alternative to tillage. It's not the most economical or beneficial to the environment as us farmers might want to be. And we probably all have that kind of inside of us saying, well, why don't we change? And it really comes down to investment, because there's a lot of money that goes into changing this practice over to something completely different. But that's what we're trying to do here at Bardwell Farm. I'm going to get into another video probably in a couple of weeks about no-till ag and what that really means as we start getting out into the fields and doing more planting and more field prep. But I wanted to give you guys a quick idea of how we actually turn our fields over, see the implements a little bit, and we'll show you some videos also of what the plowing actually looks like. It's really cool to me, and I hate to say that, but it's a really cool process, and kind of how it looks and what it does to the soil as you're plowing. So, hey, thanks for watching. If you guys like this video, please hit the like button below. Subscribe to our channel if you want to see more cool videos like this, and make sure you follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter to get more up-to-date things on what's going on Bardwell Farm today.